Hey everyone. Yeah, I wanted to show off the deck that I use to climb to infinite this season, um, and sort of go over my thoughts on how I viewed the climb and maybe some basic tips at the end. Okay, so basically, typical Galactus is really good right now in the current meta. Um, Seeing lots of high evolutionary decks makes using Galactus probably no brainer. Um, and if you've been watching the channel so far, you know that I play a lot of Galactus. So probably pretty easy, you know, reason that this deck took me to infinite. Um, yeah, so I'll probably go over a few cards now. It's pretty much the standard list with few modifications. One of them being, uh, as you can see here, I don't have Wolverine here because I think one of the reasons uh, my clan was successful was people not really knowing that I'm actually Galactus deck. Sometimes I would actually drop Jeff first, and they would think I'm probably some other deck, leading to actually the surprise factor. Um, so yeah, I guess one reason I put in Daredevil is because when you do the typical line Electro, Doctor Octopus, and um, Galactus, usually on turn 5, and if the opponent has Daredevil, but if you have it yourself, they can't actually see what you're about to do. So that's part of the main reason why I have it in there. The second reason I have this card in there is because Wolverine is a very telltale sign that's Galactus, and if I play Daredevil, people aren't actually sure what I'm playing. Um, so the second weird card that I chose is Jeff. Um, he's expensive, but it really does give you those 4 point games against mirror matchups because there's gonna be scenarios where someone gets off the Galactus and they Spider-Man you, but when Jeff allows you to actually win those tiebreakers and actually gain cubes. And most of the time, people don't expect when you're snapping in those scenarios that you actually have a play because it could just be seen as a bluff. So yeah, that's why Jeff is slotted in this deck as well. Third reason why I put Jeff in is also the inclusion of Professor X in this deck, which I'll probably discuss a little bit later. Um, yeah, so let's get to another interesting slot is Professor X. Um, also, yeah, it's also the main reason with Jeff. Um, Jeff can actually go into the Professor X lane, so your opponent might think that um, you're still able to beat you, but on turn 6, you could just Jeff on the Professor X lane with boosted stats, and you won that lane, and they don't expect that. Um, and Professor X, I also saw in Professor X for the reason that it makes the counters, the mirror matchups a lot better, because um, if you know for sure that they're a Galactus deck and they haven't played Wolverine, uh, you could just win the 50-50 right then and there if you choose the right lane that they Galactus, because Professor X could lock down the lane, and they just have the Galactus on their field, and then you've won in that case. Yeah, so I sort of modified those cards. I decided to take out Destroyer. I also decided to take out Wolverine because Wolverine was too obvious. And I also decided to take out Destroyer because I felt um, Professor X gave a lot more different location denial. Oh, and also is like a great um, companion with Spider-Man, because most of the time you probably could just win a lane with Spider-Man and Professor X. Um, yeah, so kind of want to talk about how the climb was. Yeah, so I definitely kept track of my climb. Looking at my actual statistics took me around approximately 1,400 games. Which yeah, I mean yeah, that sounds like quite a big number, but I just want to note that I would probably say 5% of the games, those ended probably within 10 seconds because either I recognized it was a bad location or the opponent also retreated because bad location for them. Um, and yeah, so I'm guessing approximately it probably took me 70 hours for the whole climb. So I started from 50, climbed all the way to 100. Um, so I guess depending on where you started from the season will probably determine how quickly you climb. Um, also want to mention this is probably the first time I have climbed to infinite, so it might have taken longer than someone else who wasn't infinite before. Um, so wanted to mention that. Keep that in mind. Um, I guess some basic tips I have are definitely learn when to snap or retreat on a specific deck that you're playing. Um, so I guess for example, in like in this deck that I played, one way that I knew that I should snap is probably if I saw the Electro Dr. Octopus Galactus play in my hand. I usually snap turn one because uh, when you drop down Dr. Octopus is usually too late. People will clearly know that you're Galactus deck. Um, and another example of actually snapping is uh, knowing that you're going to um, yeah, it's basically just having ramp or Galactus in your hand. That's probably a good way to snap for this deck. Retreating, usually if I don't draw ramp by turn 4, I usually just leave the game. I don't even play it out to turn 6 because how I view Galactus decks is basically just trying to pump out as many games as possible. Because you only have one main win condition, especially how I took out Destroyer in this deck. Um, it's very clear that you're gonna win or lose based on what you draw. There's rare instances where you could probably win with Spider-Man, Professor X combos, but those are in the rare um, chances. Yeah, I guess tip number 2, yeah, definitely take a break when you're tilted. Throughout this climb, I definitely had times where, uh, you know, I got really, you know, really bad RNG. Every single game drawing bad. Every single game getting bad locations for this deck. Um, one of the locations that's pretty bad for this deck is Dark Dimension. It's it basically makes on reveal happen after the game, and you want most of the on reveal in this deck to actually happen during the game. So yeah, there was times where I just kept getting that location, and some ways to identify you're actually on tilt would probably be like you stop counting if you're gonna win. You just stop counting cards, like you stop counting the power that the opponent can actually output. Um, that was a telltale sign for me to actually stop and actually take a break. Do anything else. Get some water, because it's like everyone says, every other content creator, getting infinite is just a marathon. You don't It's not a sprint, so just take your time. um yeah, I guess last tip I have is definitely just choose a deck that you enjoy or you like. And in my case, Galactus is actually meta currently, at the time. Because the climb is brutal itself, you might as well just play a deck that you actually enjoy. And anyone watching this channel would actually know, yeah, I play a lot of Galactus. So, um, yeah, so just wanted to share my thoughts. Let me know in the comments if you want, more tips, and have a good day.